A lot of public outrage has continued to trail the recent massacre in Plateau State. And this tragic and deeply concerning situation has led to certain devastating consequences, especially with the loss of lives as well as the displacement of thousands of residents within those communities. Now, let's take a deep dive into this crisis. What do you believe are the root causes of this conflict in this region?
The Plateau crisis is political, economic, ethnic, and it has international dimension. Okay, it has international dimension. I will also locate the crisis on the Plateau and the Middle Belt, particularly Plateau and Benue, within the context of the national question. There are unsettled issues in and about Nigeria, and the crisis in Plateau and the attendant issues are some of those unsettled, unresolved questions.
Now, Prof, one of the questions that has remained unresolved are those who are actually, involved in this crisis. I mean, this has eluded a lot of Nigerians. Who is responsible for that massacre?
Well, I wouldn't be specific on who is responsible for the killings. There are different reports, and there are different interpretations and perceptions of who did what and who is doing what. The attackers, in some instances, have been described as bandits. In other instances, the attackers have been described as criminals, and they also described as Fulani headsmen, with the connivance of Fulani without Nigeria, if you know what I mean. You know, in Niger Republic, Chad, etc. It's the bottom line is the crisis as defied solutions as it is, and it persists. I recall it became major issue in 2009, and the state it's obviously incapable of resolving the matter. The state as constituted, it's incapable of resolving the matter of the issues concretely, deliberately, concretely, and in all the ramifications.
Now, if you're talking about the state being incapable, are we talking about the government of Plateau itself, or the Nigerian state in its entirety, considering the fact that the questions have been raised as regards the security architecture of the country?
Well, I'm referring to the Nigerian state. It's actually not the Plateau state. The Plateau state government is sub-national within the Nigerian Federation. So I'm referring to the Nigerian state as constituted. The state, it's a failing state. It's not a failed state, but it's a failing state. And the primary duty of a state, wherever in the world, is to secure, public safety.
Exactly. That's also enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution.
Yeah, and it is enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution as amended. The Nigerian state has failed in this respect. It has failed in many instances. So the competence of the Nigerian state is also in doubt. You know, the Nigerian state has shown complicity, you know, and incompetence and arrogance to deal with the substantive issues underlying the Plateau crisis. There are issues. The question is, what are those issues? And what social forces are denying the resolutions of those issues? Because I'll mention, you know, I'll mention without missing words that there are social forces, you know, that are committed to the status quo antebellum in Nigeria. There are social forces who would prefer that the social economy and the politics as constituted are sustained. The problem, however, is the polity as constituted is problematic, and we need to review. You know, we need to review our politics. We need to review the nature of the federation. We need to review the economy. We need to review the legal superstructure. Every aspect of our life needs rethinking.
Now, Prof, let me ask you, how have the historical, political, as well as the socio-economic factors contributed to the escalation of this violence at this time?
I should make this point that I should make the point that that the political, economic, ethnic dimensions of the crisis are interrelated, and that the sub-issues should not be viewed in isolated sense. Though rather we should relate to those issues in mutually reinforcing sense.
Okay.
In mutually reinforcing. You know, the Plateau, Ditto Benue are populated by northern minorities. Okay? And the northern minorities, you know, characterized by somewhat different languages and cultures and histories and demeanors, etc., etc. You know, so it presupposes therefore that there are indigenes in Plateau. You know, and the indigenes, you know, naturally possesses certain rights, including right to land. You know, but since migration escalated, there's been the phenomenon of settlers, you know, in the Middle Belt, including Plateau. You know, and the presence of the settlers, you know, as you know, and the indigenes has not been cordial. And it has raised question about the indigenous-settler relationship. You know, the indigenous-settler relationship in Plateau, Ditto, Benue, have been chaotic. Have been characterized by mistrust. You know, mistrust and you know, and a mutual suspicion.
Now, Prof, looking at the implications, can you provide us insight into the regional implications of this conflict, particularly in the context of security and stability in the country?
The persistent conflict, you know, on and about land in the Middle Belt, and inter-ethnic relationships have been problematic. The indigenes, you know, have the nearly perpetual fear that the settlers have the plan to dispossess indigenous of inherited lands. There's a fear of land dispossession, and there's a fear that that the settlers, who were largely of the Fulani ethnic nationality, would substitute the heritage, the history, and the traditional governance structure with the emirate system. I suppose that in some of these sub-territories where the settlers reside, emirates are being created. So there's large-scale hostility in the Middle Belt. There's large-scale discontent. There's a sense of alienation. The indigenous people of the Middle Belt feels oppressed and repressed by the major ethnic groups, particularly the Fulani ethnic nationality. The minorities, the ethnic minorities in the Middle Belt are thus raising questions about the Nigerian Federation, about the Nigerian state as constituted. You recall that former Governor Susan of Benue, became helpless at the point when the killings became incessant, and he sought to harm the vigilante unit, in his state. You recall at that point that the Nigerian state invoked aspects of the law to remind him that the subnationality cannot bear weapons. So the Middle Belt question typifies the fault lines and the centrifugal forces that pervade the Nigerian state. The federation has constituted, the Nigerian Federation has constituted, it's an aberration. It's an aberration. And the persistent conflicts in the Middle Belt, it would rather remind the state actors and the ethnic nationalities about the fragile nature of the Nigerian state. The unity is also in question. The unity of the Nigerian state is equally fragile. It's equally fragile. If you ask me, the Nigerian Federation as constituted is in a quagmire. In fact, some intellectuals would argue that Nigeria is receding to either a centralized federalism or a unitary state. But I would insist that Nigeria is not a unitary state. I'd rather shift to the argument that powers are concentrated in the center. But the bottom line is Nigeria is a squid federation. It is a lopsided federation, and the consequences of the lopsidedness, are huge, and the consequences have enveloped the polity, and the consequences retard growth and development in Nigeria.
Now, Prof, questions have also been asked with regards to the response of the state security forces. This killing was said to have gone on for more than 3 days prior to the Christmas Eve killings, and the state security forces never reacted to those killings at certain points. And the questions are asked as regards to the culpability of the state security forces in this regard. What's your view about this?
Well, I doubt if the state security service is culpable. or my view is the state security service is incompetent, and ill-equipped, to deal with the dimensions of the conflict. Only the question we should be raising is: are the state security officers, trained to deal with guerrilla type of conflict? Are they trained to deal with militias? If I should extend the argument further, is the regular army, sufficiently trained to deal with groups that uses guerrilla tactics?
But arguments have been also put up with the fact that the Nigerian Army continue to attain certain level of successes with regards to the fight against Boko Haram, ISIS in the northern east part of the country. I mean, the fact that they are not trainees shouldn't be questioned, and that's in that regard, don't you think?
Well, it's an issue. It is an issue. I suppose elsewhere, the Nigerian state will have created, an ex-military, extra-military unit, to deal with guerrilla.
Now,
just a minute, to deal with, guerrilla war and its tactics, and its tactics. I do not share the reports in the media about the sources of the military. I suppose that the reported sources are orchestrated for political reasons.
From a political perspective, what policy measures do you believe could help mitigate this violence and foster reconciliation between conflicting groups in Plateau State at this point in time?
I made the point earlier that the Plateau question, should be viewed within the context of the national question. I should therefore posit that Nigeria requires more than policy measure. The country requires constitutional, a new constitution. Yes, the issues about the Plateau and about the Middle Belt are largely political and constitutional. And constitutional matters are not policy issues. Are not policy issues. Our constitution is flawed ab initio. It's flawed ab initio. I need to emphasize that, that the indigenous settler question, for instance, has been unresolved. And where this nexus is not resolved, it will continue to pose, threats to Nigeria's stability.
Now, considering the involvement of various groups, such as the herders from the Fulani tribe and the bandit militias, what specific measures can be taken to promote inclusivity and collaboration among diverse stakeholders in the pursuit of lasting peace in the region?
Well, I would not use the word inclusivity. Inclusivity does appear to be a bourgeois refrain, used by the state actors, to pretend democraticness. What is inclusive about the Nigerian state? I made the point earlier that the Middle Belt feels alienated by a state that's shown incompetence, on its matters. So what includes inclusivity? We need more than inclusiveness. Okay, we need more than inclusiveness. We need a conference. We need a conference to rediscuss Nigeria. And this is fundamental. We need to restructure Nigeria. Nigeria requires more than reform. Nigeria requires restructuring. in political, economic, social terms. Okay? And when we restructure, it would likely foster political accommodation and so on and so forth. I mean, they talk about inclusiveness or inclusivity within the context of a jaundice federation is false and deceitful.
That's right. Considering let me ask, how do you assess the role of President Bola Tinubu's in instructing the security agencies to address the situation, fish out the killers, and what's your reaction to this?
My response will be hard. His response is the usual, and it is the routine. We're tired of listening to the routine. Please, beg your pardon. We're tired listening to the routine. We're tired listening to the routine. The state actors are pretentious, and the state actors pretend they do not know what the issues are. The issues are deeper than pronouncement. I cannot point at a substantially different attitude or demeanor to handling the security crisis. I cannot point at it. And it does appear to me that the state, the state itself, is not committed to resolving the national question. And it does appear that the state is committed to sustaining the status quo antebellum, which has undermined development. The state is complicit.
That's a serious indictment on the state. Now, how can the government maintain transparency and accountability in the process of apprehending the suspects? And what measures could be put in place to address concerns about the reality of arrest of such attacks?
I'm at a loss. I don't know. Maybe I should also ask you. There have been several conflicts. There have been several killings. I can't recall an instance where perpetrators of the killings were arrested and prosecuted. I can't recall. No, please give an instance. I don't know about any. And where the perpetrators, kill and disappear, and the state, and the state appears incapable of dealing with whoever committed, the crimes it's problematic. You recall some observers had described the crisis in Plateau as criminality. But if you ask me, it is more than criminality. I mean, it's more than criminality. It is not sufficient to describe it as criminal, and in criminal terms. There are political and ethnic dimensions. And those political and ethnic dimensions, are far more significant, to explaining the crisis and the consequences. They're far more significant. Though these are not criminals. What they did is criminal, but it is beyond criminality. The crisis is beyond criminality. I concede, though, that whoever, the perpetrator should be prosecuted, But beyond the prosecution, we also need to to address the political question and the ethnic question and the economic question underpinning this crisis, yes, we're not addressing those issues.
Now, there have also been international outrage with regards to the devastating conflicts, and where I would like to get your perspective on this. In what ways can international support and collaboration contribute to developing a comprehensive strategies aimed at fostering peace, stability, and resilience in these affected regions?
Well, the idea of international support to deal with the question of banditry or terror, it's is attractive. But I suppose it should not be the starting point for Nigeria. The Nigerian state should offer leadership. It should give direction. It should provide new compacts. To dealing with the centrifugal forces. I keep using that word, to the centrifugal forces within Nigeria. It should. But the state as it is, it's incapable and incompetent, and if the state is sadly incapable and incompetent, should we be discussing international collaboration? So, what states would the international actors collaborate with? An incompetent state? I don't understand.
Interesting. Considering the multifaceted challenges, what are the potential possible outcomes and changes that can be achieved through concerted efforts, and how can hope for positive change be sustained in the face of adversity at this time?
I don't understand your question.
Okay. Well, you've quite clearly analyzed some of the challenges being faced, including the root causes of this crisis. Now, do you see anything positive coming out of all of this in terms of the way the federal government has striven to address the crisis?
I'll be specific. The state's approach is short-sighted, and the state's approach is not addressing the fundamentals. The state approach is peripheral, and I'm afraid the Nigerian state is deliberately ignoring the substantive issues, for superstructural issues. The substantive issues have not been dealt with. I keep mentioning that. We need to deal with the substantive issues. And I've mentioned some of these issues earlier. It borders on the constitution of the Nigerian state. The constituting nature of the Nigerian state is fundamentally defective. It's structurally defective. The Nigerian state as constituted is not structured to foster political balancing and fairness among the federating units.
Now, finally, over 10,000 community residents have been displaced, and efforts have been made to mobilize relief for these individuals who have been displaced. In what ways can the mobilization of relief resources contribute to the well-being of survivors, and how crucial is prompt medical treatment for the wounded in the aftermath of this attack? So that's the data.
Well, the relief support It's commendable, except it is tokenism. I'd rather prefer we deal with the issues, the issues that exacerbate this conflict. This for me are the issues here.
Prof, thank you so much for your insightful analysis. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.